Hey, my name is Nick Miller, and today I will be giving you my book review on Where the Wild Things Were: Life, Death, and Ecological Wreckage, A Land of Vanishing Predators by William Stolzenburg. To start, I'm going to kind of give you the basic idea of the book. It pretty much broadly says how important predators are to the biodiversity of an ecosystem. So to start, he talks about a man by the name of Robert Payne, and he gives us an experiment that the scientist did in a tide pool in a bay in Washington. So he found this pretty secluded kind of tide pool where there were 15 different species coexisting, and he kind of made like a food web, and all of their all of the lines kind of trace back to this one orange starfish. And he decided he wanted to see what would happen if he got rid of this kind of keystone predator and how that would affect the ecosystem. So he would go to this pool and he would take these starfish off the rocks and he'd throw them into the ocean as far as he could. And he'd do this, and he wanted to see how it would impact the place. And he noticed that these barnacles took over the tide pool. 7 of the 15 species that originated here before the experiment were completely gone from this pool. So from this experiment, he concluded that uh, predators are needed to prevent a secondary species from monopolizing all the resources. So predators are very, very important to it's kind of the biodiversity of an ecosystem. Um, Another story starts out in 1741, where there was a ship called the St. Peter got lost, kind of exploring uh, some unexplored northern American waters, which is kind of the Bering Sea now. The captain was Bering, and they were in trouble, and they landed in Kamchatka, which is kind of very northeast Russia. And usually you think, when you're lost at sea, you're going to be in trouble. But these sailors found uh, the Stellar sea cow. They found a sea cow that was named after Stellar, who was the naturalogist on their ship, which was just incredibly easy to hunt. Very easy to get food from. They also found these otters, which were also easy to hunt and had really wonderful fur. So once they eventually made it back home to Siberia, and they came back because they knew they could make a lot of money off of these animals. And then that's what they did. They hunted that Stellar sea cow to extinction. Otters' numbers were close to extinction. Britain and other countries heard about the money that could be made in this scenario, so they started in Kamchatka, and they went island hopping all the way over into Canada and just drove some of these otters from their natural habitats until 1911. There was a treaty which prevented the hunting of these. So over 150 years later from the initial voyage. Well, so that's kind of the premise of this story, and we fast forward to 60s. There was a master in zoology named James Estes, who he was just rejected from joining the Vietnam War, and he was taken on. He went to the same kind of region that these shipmen kind of ended up in, and he was doing research there. And he kind of did the same thing that Payne did. He kind of played God. He found a pretty secluded ecosystem. He played God in this tide pool. So he took all the sea urchins out of this tide pool and saw what would happen. And he found that these clear pools became kelp forests, top to bottom, brown kelp forests. And this like Charles Darwin, little side note, said like kelp is one of the most like useful things out there for sustaining multiple things of life. Like nothing is more important to an ecosystem than kelp. So Payne heard about these findings, and he came to visit Estes, and he wanted to do some experiments. And when they first met, Estes told him, "Oh yeah, like this shows like how important kelp is." And Payne said, "No, you're wrong. This is something bigger than what you think, and I think this has something to do with the otter and what the otter can do." So the two decided they were going to go from island to island and kind of experiment with different little secluded pools and just kind of tally what was kind of going on. And they found that where there were otters, there would be kelp, there would be fish, there would be birds of prey to hunt the fish. There still would be urchins, but the urchins would not be taken over. And when there weren't otters, these pools there were just barren fields with urchins that were noticeably larger than the urchins of the otter pools. So kind of reestablishing that point that the predators, keystone predators, are needed to kind of monitor a healthy, biodiverse kind of food web and prevents it from being monopolized by one kind of secondary species. The last example I'm going to give is in a place called the Kaibab Plateau, which is it's north of the Grand Canyon but south of the deserts of Utah, and it's described as kind of a little part of northern Montana down in the deserts of Arizona. So there was a plethora of mule deer here, and they wanted to use this place as kind of a game reserve. So they hunted, wolves were wiped out, they killed tons, I think, 800 I think was the number, just tons of mountain lions, because they wanted this mule deer to thrive. And initially it did. Initially it did thrive. The mule deer population went sky high, but eventually these deer picked the place clean, and the numbers came way down. It gives a story of there was a plan there was cowboys and there were Indians. They were trying to drive these deer to another area because they wanted the deer to live, but the plan failed. They came back to the peninsula, and the deer herd went down an estimated 80,000 numbers in population. And then a man came around, New Zealand man named Colley, who kind of brought into, we don't really know what the numbers were. This might be a dramatization. Maybe we can't take this for fact. And for a while, people believed him. But later, there was the Zion National Park. There was a little something happened there that kind of proved the importance of the Kaibab Plateau situation. Zion had a very similar, very biodiverse kind of ecosystem there, and then when it was made a park, people came in, and kind of similar thing happened where the cougar numbers went down, deer went up, and the deer picked the place clean again, and the biodiversity of the place just went way down. And if you go 9 miles, there's another canyon called the North Creek Canyon where these cougars still exist, or still existed at the time, and you could see butterflies and swallowtails, toads. The cottonwood trees were a big one. The cottonwood trees were just way more. It was a much healthier place. Instating that the importance of predators to keep the biodiversity of a thing. So I seem I'm getting close to 10 minutes, so I'm just going to kind of wrap it up with the epilogue. And the author kind of ties it all together, and he says, men are responsible for a lot of the imbalances that have happened in in these ecosystems, but where we were, there is kind of a man is death thing. We're also the savior. There's also a lot of instances where we kind of realize what's going on and have kind of stepped in. And now because we're knowledgeable of this, we know how to treat these predators different. Instead of killing the wolves, maybe he gave the example of tigers like to sneak up on people, and instead of like setting out hunting parties to kill these tigers, they'll wear fake masks on the back of their head to prevent them from getting jumped. So just kind of saying we're more knowledgeable. We can instead of just killing these predators, there's other ways we can kind of deal with the threat of them. So all right, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. It's very there's a lot of names. It's very in depth, but I thought there was a lot of good, interesting things to take from it.